Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about the verb ser, which we should already remember, and also descriptive adjectives. So first we need to review the verb ser because we have been out of school for a little while. Remember that ser means to be, and then this chart here has our 6 forms. So our yo form for the verb ser is going to be soy. Our tú form for the verb ser is going to be eres. The él, ella, usted form is going to be es. Nosotros form is somos. The vosotros form is sois. And the ellos, ellas, ustedes form is going to be son. So once again, the 6 forms that we're going to use are going to be soy, eres, es, somos, sois, and son. The reason why we have to review this verb is that because one, it does mean to be, so once again it means am, is, or are once it's conjugated, but this is the verb that we use whenever we're giving descriptions of things. So since we're going to be talking about descriptive adjectives, we know that we have to use the verb ser in order to be able to give a descriptive, or use the descriptive adjectives or give physical descriptions of anyone or anything. Another important thing that we have to review is gender. So you may remember that all nouns, so people, places, things, ideas, all nouns are going to have gender. They're either going to have the masculine gender or the feminine gender, okay? Very few nouns are going to be gender neutral, and even if the noun itself is gender neutral, remember it's going to have an article in front of it that will determine the overall gender. So like estudiante, it could say el estudiante to be a masculine gender or la estudiante to be a feminine gender, okay? The same way as in English, we can have nouns that are either singular or plural. So one student versus multiple students, right? Los estudiantes or el estudiante, okay, going into our different gender. And then when we're talking about mixed groups, so a group of female and male, that gender group is going to take on the masculine. Since it's a group, that's going to inherently mean that it is plural, okay? And then just as a general rule, some reminders for you. Most nouns that end in L-O-N-E-R or S, also known as loners, those nouns are going to be masculine. Nouns that end in D, I-O-N, Z, or A are going to be inherently feminine. Okay, so loners is masculine, dionsa is going to be feminine. You will have some rule breakers, but those are just our general rules for us. So getting into descriptive adjectives, remember that an adjective is a word that's used to describe people, places, things. Okay, so adjectives are used in order to describe nouns. Okay, in Spanish, I've already told you this, we are going to use the verb ser. So once again, that means that we're using soy, eres, es, somos, sois, or son. Okay, and then we can also use this verb ser to talk about characteristics like nationality. So when we talked about nationalities before, colors, personality, and appearance are going to be the other 2 main categories of descriptive adjectives that we're going to talk about today. So here we have to worry about the forms of the adjective, and what I mean by that is the ways to make the adjectives agree, okay? So in English, we don't have to worry about the adjectives being plural or being masculine or being feminine. The adjective is just what it is. So our example here is Juan is nice, okay? Juan is nice. And we have Elena is nice. Okay, and then we have they are nice. Notice that we use the exact same adjective 3 times. The first time we're talking about a boy, second time we're talking about a girl, and then the third time we're talking about multiple people, they. We use just that single adjective. In Spanish, we have to change the ending of that adjective in order to make it agree. So what that's going to look like is if we're using, once again, our same example of Juan is nice, so our adjective is nice. We have Juan es simpático. Juan es simpático. Notice that simpático, or nice, is going to end with an O because Juan is a male. Then if we look at Elena, we have Elena es simpática. Elena es simpática. Notice that our adjective, simpática, or nice, is going to end in an A, right? So because Elena is a female, we have to make sure that that adjective agrees and ends in an A, that it is feminine. For our last example, we have ellos son simpáticos. Ellos son simpáticos. Notice here that since we're talking about ellos, a masculine they, that simpáticos is going to end in OS, which tells us that once again, it's masculine and it's plural. So you'll notice ellos, right, becomes simpáticos, okay? Even though our base adjective is simpático, okay? So for masculine singular, it becomes O. For feminine singular, it becomes A, and then masculine plural, os. Okay, so remember that whoever or whatever that adjective is describing, the adjective must have the same gender agreement as well as number agreement. So we go from talking about one masculine person being nice, so we use the singular masculine adjective. Feminine singular, one person being nice, so we use the feminine singular version of that adjective. And then once again, this is masculine plural or mixed group in plural, so we have to use the adjective that fits for that mixed group or masculine plural. So as a general rule, any adjective that has an O at the end is going to have 4 different forms, okay? O is going to stand for the masculine singular, and then we can change that O to an A to be our feminine singular. And then all we have to do to make it plural is add S. Now, I know that sounds like it could be a lot, but think about it. You already know the word chico, and we know that chico is just one boy. Well, maybe we're not talking about a boy anymore, we want to talk about one girl. So we change that O in chico to an A and have chica, okay? And then the same way that we would make both chico and chica plural by adding an S is the same process that we're going to go through for these adjectives. So our example that we have is using down here the adjective alto, which means tall. So we say el muchacho alto. Both are singular and both are masculine. If we want to make it plural, all we do is add our S's. So los muchachos altos. Both are now masculine and plural. For our feminine side, we have la muchacha alta. Singular and feminine. Then here, I'm sorry that I got cut off, we would have las muchachas altas. So make sure that if you are writing this down as an example, that it says altas with an S at the end of alta. Okay, that got cut off here. So if our adjective ends in an O, we know that it's going to have the 4 forms where it ends in an O, OS, A, or AS, depending on if we are talking about masculine or feminine, singular or plural. If we have an adjective that ends in OR, then we know we have to also worry about gender there, okay? So think about this the same way we learned the word profesor for teacher. For a boy teacher, we say profesor, which ends in OR. But if we want to talk about a female teacher, we would say profesora with an A at the end. The same thing is going to happen to our adjectives that end in OR. For our singular masculine form, we would have trabajador. so it just ends in its OR. Trabajador means hardworking. If we want to talk about a woman who is hardworking, we come over here and it would become la mujer trabajadora. Okay, so all we did was we added an A to this one. Now, plural, this is where it gets to be a little bit different. The same way we would do plural for the word profesor, we are going to follow all of those same rules. So since trabajador ends in an R, which is a consonant, we have to add ES to make that plural. But if we want to talk about multiple females who are hardworking, in this case, we would say las mujeres trabajadoras. So all we had to do was add an S to our adjective trabajadora. If we have an adjective that ends in E or a different consonant, then we are going to have the same masculine and feminine forms. So that means that we only have to worry about two versions of this adjective. An example of this would be the adjective inteligente, which means intelligent or smart. So if we want to say the boy is intelligent or the intelligent boy, we would just say el chico inteligente. But then if we want to talk about a female that's intelligent, we say la chica inteligente. Notice that there is nothing else different about the way the inteligente looks when it is paired with a chico masculine or chica feminine. When we want to make that plural, all we have to do is add an S. So it becomes los chicos inteligentes or las chicas inteligentes. When we have an adjective that ends in a consonant or a non-vowel, we have to add ES to the end to make it plural. So you'll see here that we have the example of difícil. Difícil means difficult, and we use difícil both for singular masculine and singular feminine. If we want to make it plural, we add an ES to the end, and it becomes difíciles. And we will use difíciles for both masculine and feminine plural. So difícil would be used for both masculine and feminine singular, and difíciles would be used for both masculine and feminine plural. Now, don't panic about trying to write all of these down. All of these adjectives are already located in your vocabulary list. This is just so that you can see all of the different adjectives that we have. Notice that your adjectives that we have to worry about masculine and feminine, they are already marked with us. For example, the first one on the list, alto. That is alto / A if you're looking at it, which means that we can use alto or alta. But then if we look down in that same column, we have our one difícil, which is hard or difficult, that doesn't have to worry about gender. It only needs to worry about plurality. So that means that it would just be difícil, even if we're talking about something feminine or masculine. So anything that has /A, you know you have to remember that it has to agree with the feminine form. Anything that ends in an E or a consonant does not have to agree in gender, but must agree in number. So colors and nationality. No, it's been a while since we've talked about colors, but when we learned all of our colors, most of them, if we remember, ended in an O. If it is a color that ended in O, then we also will have to make sure that that adjective agrees in gender. So that means that if I wanted to talk about the computer, la computadora, and I wanted to say that it's a red computer, I would have to say la computadora roja, making sure that my color that I know for red, rojo, ends in an A. So it would become la computadora roja. Okay, but if I wanted to talk about a red bus, like my example has, then I would use the masculine form, so it would be un autobús rojo. Now remember, there are some colors that will end in either an E or a consonant. An example would be the color blue, azul. That one does not need to agree in gender because we can't change for gender. It does need to agree in plurality. So if I wanted to talk about many blue buses, I would have to say unos autobuses azules, and I would have to add the es on the end of azul to make it plural. Next, we talked about this last semester, but country names are going to be capitalized, but the nationalities are not capitalized. In Spanish, we use nationalities as adjectives. They are not considered proper nouns. So just like on your nationalities list from last semester, you had to write all 4 forms. Okay? You have here an example of Juana es colombiana. So that's saying that Juana is Colombian. Okay? Notice that colombiana is not capitalized and it is feminine because we are talking about Juana, a girl. The position of adjectives is going to be a little different than it is in English. In English, for example, I would say blue eyes. So the adjective in English comes before the noun that I'm talking about. In Spanish, though, we're typically going to have our noun come before the adjective. So if I were trying to use my example of blue eyes, in Spanish it would become ojos, or eyes, ojos azules. So I have to make sure that when I'm writing about adjectives or using adjectives in Spanish, that I use the noun first and then the adjective. You can also see that here in these 2 examples. The one with the boy is we have El niño rubio es de España. So in English, that would translate to the blonde boy is from Spain. But we know that when we say it in Spanish, we have to say boy blonde. The second example, la mujer española habla inglés. This is saying the Spanish woman speaks English. But we have to remember that when we say it in Spanish, we actually say woman Spanish. So just remember that we have to flip the order of our adjectives and nouns. So when we do it in Spanish, the noun comes first and then the adjective. This is a great way for you to make sure that you're always using gender agreement, because if your noun that you're modifying comes first, it's easy to keep the gender agreement consistent. When we talk about adjectives of quantity, that would mean numbers or adjectives that can mean many or a lot, okay? These are typically going to go before the noun. So when we're talking about adjectives that give us some kind of number or amount, those are going to go before the noun. So if we look at our examples, we see hay muchos libros en la biblioteca. There are many books in the library. So just like in English, how I would say many books, in Spanish I say muchos libros. So our adjective of quantity, or our adjective of number, is going to go before the noun. Second example is hablo con dos turistas puertorriqueños. So I'm talking with 2 Puerto Rican tourists. The second one is a fantastic example because we have both a descriptive adjective in this sentence and an adjective of quantity. So our adjective of quantity is dos, or 2. Notice that comes before the noun, so I know how many of that noun I have. The second part is the adjective of description, which is going to be our nationality, puertorriqueños. Okay, so puertorriqueños is coming after the noun that it's modifying. We have 2 special ones that will change just a little bit. Bueno and malo have to agree with gender and with number. Now, Both of these adjectives can go before or after the noun. It'll say the same thing regardless of where we decide to put these two adjectives. But there is a very important detail that if we put either bueno or malo before the noun and the noun is masculine, we have to shorten it. So if we decide to put bueno before the word hombre, then it would have to become buen hombre. If we put it after hombre, then we would say hombre bueno. Same way if I decided to use malo. I could say mal hombre, putting it before the noun, or hombre malo. Very long story short is that we can't have that O there in front of the singular masculine noun. It's not needed, it's not necessary. But after that singular masculine noun, we would still need it. The word grande can be used before or after the noun, but depending on if we use it before or after, is actually going to make some changes to what that word means. So we know that grande is going to mean big or large. If we were to decide to put this in front of the noun, so say you were trying to say big house, for instance, and you tried to put grande in front of house, casa, then one, it would need to be shortened to gran, but then you're changing the meaning of that word. So if you had to shorten it to gran, then it's going to mean great. If you leave it as grande, then it's going to mean big and large. If you want the word to mean big or large, then it needs to go after the noun. If you want it to be used to mean great, then it needs to go before the noun. Okay? So remember that if you want to say great, you're going to use gran, and it'll go before our noun. If you want to say that something is big or something is large, then it's going to go after the noun, and you will use grande.